It's lunchtime, and this is Brad Anderson's Lunch Break. If you work with technology, you've probably been to more than a few conferences in Orlando. When I got invited to speak at Citrix Synergy, I booked a flight and called a few really smart people to meet up for lunch. Today I'm meeting up with the CIO of Antares Capital, Mary Cecola. Hey Mary.
Hi Brad, how are you?
Good. I feel like I'm saying welcome aboard. You know?
It is like welcome aboard.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Antares and like where it came from. Because I think you have got such a unique story.
About 10 years ago, I guess it was, GE Capital came around and ultimately bought Antares Capital into GE Antares is what it was.
Okay.
In 2015, GE decided to shed most of the businesses in GE Capital, and Antares was one of those. Instead of being bought up by a large firm, a lot of them went to, a Wells or a BMO. Antares was kind of a crown jewel of that business, and the management really wanted to launch as its own company. And they came out of GE as their own company, which has led to the challenges we have. It was a deal business, but there's no infrastructure.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about mergers and acquisitions,
Yep.
But like when you spin out, there's a day where all of a sudden you're completely on your own. And it's just like, today you're part of GE, tomorrow you are a standalone company.
And every system they wanted new. They did not want to use a GE system. So we went from 35 platforms at GE to 5 major platforms at the new company. And we rolled it all out in about 18 months.
You're a born in the cloud company, but it's not like a typical born in the cloud where it started with 1 or 2 people and then grew up.
Mm-hmm.
You started like running full speed day one, born in the cloud.
When we first bought the Azure cloud, it went on my personal credit card because we didn't have corporate cards yet. And then I had to move it to my corporate card. And then slowly we got our E5 licenses. It became a regular billing. But that's where it really felt like a startup.
Wow. I wonder how many CTOs or CIOs could say that they started the first public cloud acquisition for the company was on their personal credit card. So I heard you talk about leading in an IT department in a way that it becomes just a measurable part of the company's bottom line. So how do you communicate to your organization, that you're a part of the success of the organization and how you attribute what IT does to the success of the overall Antares?
This is, I think, one place that cloud has helped us tremendously. When I first thought we were going to do it, I really thought it was an infrastructure play. And I've learned that being completely in the cloud changes the way you run a department as a CIO. One story I have is after we rolled out 3 offices, we realized the size of our VDIs were too small. They were half as much power these deal teams needed. So in one weekend, we ran a script, and really it lasted 2 hours. We dropped every desktop we'd roll out, doubled the size of them in one weekend. If I had to do that as a traditional project...
And it would have been weeks instead of hours.
Weeks. Instead of on a weekend, and no one noticed. The desktops came up like they were before. They just seemed to perform better.
So you were super bold. You said, I'm going all in the cloud from the get-go. What was that like? And was there resistance? I'm curious what that was like.
I would not say there was resistance. The speed we had to move, it made the most sense. We had to have test environments up before we had our own network up. And one of the only ways you're going to do that is really going to be going with the cloud. I'd done my research at my last firm and realized how safe it was. People ask me about the safety of the cloud.
Yeah. Is it secure?
Honestly,
Is it not?
when you pick a partner like Azure that's FedRAMP certified and the security controls they can afford to put around it, it's safer than a data center in my shop.
Yep.
But what I did like is tools that weren't ready. Microsoft engineers were really honest with us. And they're like, you probably don't want to go with this yet. We're just moving on to Intune. We started with another product, but they've said, now it's there. And we're migrating next weekend. And I would, as again mentioned, being in the cloud, these migrations, they take a week to plan and execute instead of months and months of our time.
All too often, people who haven't gone into it yet think about it as just a way to maybe save costs.
Yeah.
It's about agility and it's about making the business better.
I talk to CIOs and they're like, what were your cost savings? And I said, I wouldn't make it about money. I would say I'm going to pitch my last infrastructure project ever. And after I do this, I will focus on every business need you have. And I think that's the play. It just changes the business model.
Next time on Brad Anderson's Lunch Break.
Do you think it's safe to be in the cloud? Well, not all cloud providers. I mean, you pick ones that are certified that you can trust, and then change the question. It's not, is cloud safe? It's, what do you consider safe? And let me explain to you how you can do that in the cloud.